Ilyas. This short story by Leo Tolstoy talks about the learnings of Ilyas, a man who has had his share of fortune as well as misfortune, and his views on both these states. In the government of Ufa, there lived a Bakshir, Ilyas. His father had left him no wealth and died a year after he got his son married. At that time, Ilyas had 7 mares, 2 cows, and a score of sheep. But Ilyas was a good master and began to increase his possessions. He worked with his wife from morning until night, got up earlier than anybody, and went to bed later, and grew richer from year to year. Thus Ilyas passed 35 years at work and came to have a vast fortune. Ilyas finally had 200 horses, 150 cattle, and 1200 sheep. Men herded Ilyas's herds and flocks, and women milked the mares and cows and made kumis, butter, and cheese. Ilyas had plenty of everything, and in the district everybody envied him and his life. People said, "Ilyas is a lucky fellow. He has plenty of everything. This world must be a pleasant place for him." Good people made Ilyas's friendship and became his friends, and guests came to him from a distance. He received them all, fed them, and gave them to drink. No matter who came, they received kumis, tea, sherbat, and mutton. If guests came to see him, a sheep or two were killed, and if many guests arrived, he got a mare killed. Ilyas had 2 sons and a daughter. He had got all of them married. When Ilyas had been poor, his sons had worked with him and had herded the horses, the cattle, and the sheep. But when they grew rich, the sons became spoiled, and one of them even began to drink. The eldest was killed in a fight, while the younger had a proud wife and did not obey his father. So Ilyas had to give him a separate maintenance. Ilyas gave him a house and cattle, whereby his own wealth diminished. Soon after, a plague fell on Ilyas's sheep, and many of them died. Then there was a famine year. The hay crop was a failure, and in the winter, many of the cattle died. Then the Kyrgyzs, that is an ethnic group, drove off the best herd of horses, and thus Ilyas's estate grew less. He fell lower and lower, and his strength began to wane. When he was 70 years old, he began to sell off his furs, rugs, and soon he had to sell his last head of cattle, so that he was left without anything. Before he knew it, all was gone, and in his old age, he had to go with his wife to live among strangers. All that Ilyas had left of his fortune was the garments he had on his body, a fur coat, a cap, his Morocco slippers and shoes, and his wife Shemagi, who was now an old woman. The son to whom he had given the property had left for a distant country, and his daughter had died. And so there was nobody to help the old people. Their neighbor Muhammad Shah took pity on them. Muhammad Shah was neither rich nor poor, and he lived an even life and was a good man. He remembered Ilyas's hospitality and so pitied him and said to Ilyas, "Come to live with me, Ilyas, and bring your wife with you. In the summer, work according to your strength in my truck garden, and in the winter, feed the cattle, and let Shemagi milk the mares and make kumis. I will feed and clothe you, and will let you have whatever you may need." Ilyas thanked his neighbor and went to live with his wife as Muhammad Shah's laborers. At first it was hard for them, but soon they got used to the work, and the old people worked according to their strength. It was profitable for the master to keep these people, for they had been masters themselves and knew all the order and were not lazy, but worked according to their strength. It pained Muhammad Shah to see the well to do people brought down so low. One day, distant guests, matchmakers, that is, brokers, happened to call on Muhammad Shah, and the mullah too came. Muhammad Shah offered his men to catch a sheep and kill it. Ilyas flayed the sheep and cooked it and sent it to the guests. They ate the mutton, drank tea, and then started to drink kumis. The guests and the master were sitting on down cushions on the rugs, drinking kumis out of bowls and talking. But Ilyas got through with his work and walked past the door. When Muhammad Shah saw him, he said to a guest, "Do you see the old man who just went past the door?" "I did," said the guest. "But what is so remarkable about him?" "What is remarkable is that he used to be our richest man. Ilyas is his name. Maybe you have heard of him?" "Of course I have. I have never seen him, but his fame has gone far abroad. Now he has nothing left, and he lives with me as a laborer, and his wife is with him. She milks the cows." The guest was surprised. He clicked his tongue, shook his head, and said, "Evidently, fortune flies around like a wheel. One it lifts up, another it takes down. Well, does the old man pine? Who knows? He lives quietly and peacefully and works well." Then the guest said, "May I speak to him? I should like to ask him about his life." "Of course you may," said the master. He called out of the tent, "Babe," this means grandfather in the Bashkia language. "Come in and drink some kumis and bring your wife with you." Ilyas came in with his wife. He exchanged greetings with the guests and with the master, said a prayer, and knelt down at the door. But his wife went behind a curtain and sat down with the mistress. A bowl of kumis was handed to Ilyas. Ilyas saluted the guests and the master, made a bow, drank a little, and put down the bowl. "Grandfather," the guest said to him, "I suppose it makes you feel bad to look at us and think of your former life, considering what fortune you had and how hard your life is now." But Ilyas smiled and said, "If I should tell you about my happiness and unhappiness, you would not believe me. You had better ask my wife. She is a woman, and what is in her heart is on her tongue. She will tell you all the truth about this matter." And the guest spoke to her behind the curtain. "Well, Granny, tell us how you judge your former happiness and present sorrow." And Sham Shemagi spoke from behind the curtain. "I judge like this. My husband and I lived for 50 years trying to find happiness, and we did not find it. But now it is the second year that we have nothing left, and that we live as laborers, and we have found that happiness and need no other." The guest was surprised, and the master marveled. And he even got up to throw aside the curtain and look at the old woman. But the old woman was standing with folded hands, smiling and looking at her husband. And the old man was smiling too. The old woman said once more, "I am telling you the truth without any jest. For half a century we tried to find happiness, and so long as we were rich, we did not find it. Now nothing is left, and we are working. And we have come to have such happiness that we wish for no other. Wherein does your happiness lie? In this: when we were rich, my husband and I did not have an hour's rest. We had no time to talk together, to think of our souls or pray. we had so many cares. At times, guests called on us, and there were the cares about what to treat them and what presents to make so that they should not misjudge us. When the guests left, we had to look after the laborers. They thought only of resting and having something good to eat, but we cared only about having our property attended to, and so sinned. At other times, we were afraid that a wolf would kill a colt or a calf, and sometimes that thieves might drive off a herd. When we lay down to sleep, we could not fall asleep, fearing lest the sheep might crush the lambs. We would get up in the night and walk around. No sooner would we be quieted than we would have a new care: how to get fodder for the winter. And worse than that, there was not much of an agreement between my husband and me. He would say this had to be done like this, and I would say differently, and so we began to quarrel and sin. Thus, we lived from one care to another, from one sin to another, and saw no happy life. Well, and now? Now, my husband and I get up, speak together peacefully, in agreement, for we have nothing to quarrel about, nothing to worry about. All the care we have is to serve our Master. We work according to our strength, and we work willingly so that our Master shall have no loss, but profit. When we come back, dinner is ready, and supper and kummis. If it is cold, there are dung chips to make a fire with, and a fur coat to warm ourselves. For 50 years we looked for happiness, but only now have we found it. The guests laughed, and Ilyas said, "Don't laugh, brothers. This is not a joke, but a matter of human life. My wife and I were foolish and wept because we had lost our fortune. But now God has revealed the truth to us, and we reveal this to you, not for our amusement, but for your good." And the mullah said, "That was a wise speech, and Ilyas has told the precise truth. It says so too in the Holy Writ." And the guests stopped laughing and fell in deep thought.